Boys in men's bodies is an epidemic. Well, at least that's what the experts are saying. And, you know, I'm inclined to partially agree. You know, when I look at the no belief in themselves, no confidence, no mission, no purpose, are looking for validation in all the wrong things, in money, in women, in material possessions, in a range of things that will never validate the man on the inside. And so today we're going to talk about the art of validation. And I'm going to talk about a couple of stories because there's a process that's been around for forever around developing a man's character, qualifying a man, initiating a man, validating a man. So I always like to go to the dictionary. The dictionary says it's the act of affirming one's actions, behaviors. Okay, to be affirmed. And unfortunately, when we're in different environments, we'll do anything to be validated. We'll do anything to try and, you know, get some sort of a response from a woman. Maybe it's from other men. You know, maybe it's from your wife. You know, so many men that I've come across over the years, they actually, when I take them through these rite of passages, they actually, particularly the validation process, they'll actually come clean and say, you know what, I feel like a boy, like my wife's running the show. You know, whereas no man is designed to be like that, let alone if you feel like that. So man, I want to talk to you today. You know, I could talk for, we all know the stuff that's demasculating. You know, we can talk about that, but I really want to focus on the solution in this video, or I want to tell some stories, and then so that you can kind of measure yourself. Where are you at on these six kind of what I would refer to as where you get your stripes, okay? You know, because money, getting drunk, they're not really the stripes you want to get. Oh, you can get them, but they won't actually give you what you want. They won't make you happy. So a quick story. Well, a story. Let's see how quick it can be. So this is something that I come across maybe over 20 years ago, and it was a story, and it was probably the most documented story in regards to an Indigenous rite of passage in Australia. And because as soon as I get something, I'm like a dog with a bone. I find some kind of rite of passage, man, I'm on it. Want some kind of validation process in a culture, I'm on it. I want more. I want to know more. Well, anyway, I'll get to why I'm here later, but you know what I mean? Like, I'll do whatever it takes, okay? And let's say I want to talk about this, like I said, this Indigenous cultured rite of passage. It worked very, very well for a very long time. And what it looks like is, particularly when males, they're boys, they're young, what they would do with this particular tribe is they would, because everyone's got to contribute. In a village, in a tribe, everyone must contribute. You know, so when a boy would get to, you know, 3, 4, you know, he would all of a sudden start helping his mum. You know, if he's not on a hip or being looked after, he's actually contributing. And so what would happen there is they would learn how to pick berries. They would learn, as boys, they would learn how to actually, you know, find witchetty grubs, put them in mum's bag, okay? You know, well, maybe not a bag, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, in a sack. You know, and then they, you know, would actually qualify, particularly, you know, around the age, you know, 6, 7, whatever, you would learn how to build things. make things. You would be contributing. You know, you would be looking for sticks to make as a spear. You'll be looking for bits of wood that you would maybe start to sharpen with stones. You would look for rocks that you'll be able to build things with straight away. You know, and then particularly I love the stage where once you would start to contribute like that, obviously you'd already be running around with the men. You know, you leave the mother, you'd start to run with other men. And particularly that's always a good sign, a healthy environment when you have, you know, elderly men, you have men, you know, as kings, middle-aged men, you know what I mean? You'd have younger men starting families, you'd have teenage men, you'd have boys. When you've got all those 6 stages in an environment, that's actually a healthy environment. And I mean, I could talk a lot about that, what I used to do with the boxing program to get all men helping each other, because that's, iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man, you know. But particularly when we get to literally that hunter stage, you would have to learn how to hunt. I mean, getting berries is one thing. You're not going to live off berries forever. You need to hunt from what they would make, you know, in regards to spears and that type of thing, boomerangs and weapons, you know, that would actually be able to hunt with, you know. Then nothing better than bringing, I mean, every man knows, you know, paycheck day, man, you know, you bring home the catch. It does wonders for the tribe. It does wonders for the household, for the family. So for example, you know, you can hunt, man, you know, and of course when you get to that stage when you can hunt, then you would actually be able to fight. You know what I mean? Not be able, you need to develop that warrior. Every man needs to know how to fight, because particularly that tribe where it was positioned, where I got all this documentation on, you know, they're always at war with another tribe. It always seemed to be at war. There'd be at peace with them, then there'd be at war with them. So you got to contribute. If you've got a set of nuts, you've got to be able to fight here. You've got to be able to defend the women and the children. Okay, so there's no, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. That does not cut it, you know. So everyone were through these different stages, they would be qualified. And I should remind you, well, maybe not remind you, if you've listened to maybe other videos and particularly, you know, did my programs when I talk about what needs to happen in this process, is particularly that tribe, what would happen to them after every validation, qualification, you know, passage to the next test. You would actually get a stripe, what they would refer to as a stripe from one side of their chest to the other. And what that stripe means is a cut. And it's not like, you know, we're talking a couple of 100 years ago, over 200 years ago, like it wouldn't be with a nice disinfected, with a nice knife that actually, with a doctor that cuts it, and no, it was with a rock, a sharpened rock that they would make to actually cut themselves. Okay, so it would be cutting each other. So after every qualifier, every rite of passage was get ready for the next passage, get you ready for the next passage, cut, a cut, a cut. So you had your chest done, you know, and particularly when I love about one of the last things, you know, I mean, before I even get to that, one of the last things that you would have to do is you would have to spend time on your own. You know, you're into, you know, you're becoming adulthood now, so you would need to be able to look after yourself. You would have to, so hence you would maybe have heard of it, the original would go walkabout. You would be with yourself, man. Be with your creator. You would be, you know, with yourself, me, myself and I. And of course, you know, you would come back when you felt it was time. You know, so there was a whole validation process about being with yourself, being with your God, being with, whoa, man, what am I here for? You would have time to contemplate your future. What required of your masculinity. What was actually, by going through by qualifying those other stripes, one would build on top of the next one. So once you had that time, you'd come back and there would be, one of the final tests. I mean, the test is never over, but one of the final validations was the men. Because you can't do this on your own, gentlemen. No matter what era you live in, and despite what lone wolves will tell you, okay. So what the men would do is they would take the man up, the becoming of a man up to this mountain, this one particular mountain that had all these particular rocks, and they were like a slate kind of rock, but they were strong, these rocks. And what they would do is they would actually teach them, these boys were qualified with these, teach them how to make this axe. Okay, so they would have their own axe. It would be like the ultimate weapon when you went to war, the ultimate weapon when you wanted to bring down the biggest kangaroo, to feed the village, it was the ultimate. So once you got that, you got your final stripe, and at that point, then and only then, you could take a woman. You had a say in the village, in the community. You'd been tried and tested. You qualified. And of course, that's where a man's self-worth, self-esteem is built off, knowing that he is enough. He has passed those tests. He has men that have gone before him that he looks up to, that would be able to speak into him and validate his strength. Because without that, man, you're going to be second guessing yourself. And we look at, particularly this modern day and age, goodness me, and this is what I want to do in a couple of minutes, is basically go through those things and ask yourself, what's the equivalent in this day and age? Like for you, what is the actual equivalent? Because as I said earlier, I'm here I'm here in Gozo, in Malta, in the Mediterranean, and this culture has been, like I said before, I get a sniff of a rite of passage, man, I'm on it. Whereas I've been here for the last 18 months or so, and studying, observing, living in this culture, and it's got some great, absolute amazing things, and like every culture, it's got some stuff that they're working through, and I look at why they're working through it. If I look out the window of my office, there's a fortified city. Where this country has been attacked, has gone major wars, like in the last 200 years BC, the last few thousand years, let's say, it's been under at least 12 major wars. And when I say not like this country has been, this country's been in war, but it's been other countries fighting over these small islands, for the position where it is between Africa and Europe. It's a very good spot when you go to war with other countries. Anyway, the point I'm making, this country has been oppressed. He's been under battles. All those dozen times under war, major wars. Then there's been probably triple times where pirates would come here and steal animals, steal food, steal slaves, women, children, men, to sell in Egypt, to sell in other parts of the world. These people, because they're such a unique spot in the Mediterranean, that people were known for being so healthy. But it's taken its toll, man. The oppression that I have actually seen. You know, the fortified cities, people are on guard. It's in the culture, and then the nicest people I've ever met. But goodness me, you've got to get to know them. You know, like for example, the reason I was in this last house that I rented, it was over 300 years old. It was amazing, but what caught my attention was there was caves under the house, and there was all this storage space where they would bring their animals and board the windows, the wall that was underground, so that they would have to. There's too many ships turn up. They know their children are going to be stolen. So the point I'm getting to here is that, and the whole story why I come here, my wife's family are from here. They still own properties. They still own houses. Like the one house that they own, they've owned for 106 years, but it's over 400 years old. It's been through the wars. I can see where they had a well inside because there's no water when the enemy comes. Everything's boarded up. It's very, very unique. So the point I'm getting to here is that I've submersed myself over the last 18 months into this culture, man. And I'm actually going to, for all the things I've learned, I'm actually going to run a rite of passage here by incorporating some of the things that these warriors have endured. By some of the history this is so unique. This is, for a man who has studied rite of passages since the 90s, man, I've never come across anything like this. You know, man, I've never come across it. And to be able to, so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to run a rite of passage here. I've never done anything like this. I didn't know anything like this existed. So, man, and it'll never be done again. It's such a unique spot in time. So without telling you too much about that, because that's kind of the way rite of passages work, man. You know, it's the unknown. It's the full test in every way. So what I want to do, what I would like to say is, for example, on that first thing, you know, when we talk about this modern world, this modern man, where everything's push button and Amazon delivers it, instant coffee's not quick enough, we get it, we don't even make it, we're too lazy to make it. Goodness me, you know, like there's men down this hill that 4 generations that they know of, they've had this land where every year they plant seed, every year they harvest for their families. You know, like this, man. What I've experienced here compared to what I've seen, what happens in Western culture, is pitiful. Any wonder men are soft. Any wonder, you know, people don't know, men don't understand what a mission actually even is. You know, what having a dream in your heart actually does for a man. Goodness me. So, you get where I'm coming from here, man. I cannot stress this enough. Goodness me. You know, you get a dream, you get a mission, you get a purpose. I mean, you've already got it. It's when you start to become that man who fulfills that. You will never do that unless you've been qualified, validated, initiated. That's why men are not living out their dreams. That's why men don't even have the confidence to actually dream. Soon as something happens, soon as something goes wrong, they pull the pin on their life, on their dreams. All right, I'm going to stick to this, all right? So what I want you to do, and maybe hopefully you've got a pad and pen, or press pause and maybe, you know, that first thing, all right? When those indigenous tribes, you know, they would pick berries with their mum. They were the beloved son. So did you have that experience? Because that's the whole thing about initiation and validation. Once you go through one test, one passage, then you're ready for the next passage, which enables you grow into that man. Okay? You don't go from being a mummy's boy to, oh, hey, I've got a credit card and a new car and I look the part because I've been pumping iron. No. That's an undeveloped man. That's a recipe for disaster. Okay? So, did you go through, do you remember as a young boy feeling that unconditional love from a male, hopefully your father, maybe it's a stepdad, maybe it's no, but from a man who you looked up to? Okay, did you feel that unconditional love from your mother, or was the whole thing performance based? When you're good enough, when your grades are enough, whatever. Anyway, so where did you go? Do you feel unconditional love? And the second stage, we talk about building, making those boomerang spears. Were you able to actually go outside and play and test yourself? Were you able to, did you have rock fights? Did you craft something? Was there some kind of test as a young man to be able to build something? Or did you sit on a computer? Did you sit in front of the TV growing up, watching other people? Anyway, like the hunter, and this is where I think some of us got in some ways a kind of counterfeit, where they were able to use sport, they were able to get a coach. They were able to get a coach to push them, to challenge them, That's always quite good. Maybe we had a father who spoke good stuff into us, who maybe did validate the good thing, or maybe we had men we looked up to that we looked at getting validated for the wrong things. I don't know. I want you to see, where are you at here? When it comes to the warrior stage, a lot of the times even partly what happened to me, I remember there was a point where I wanted to go travelling. I needed to go travelling. Before I even knew what rite of passages were, I remember thinking, maybe this will make a man out of me. It didn't, by the way. But, that's what, have you been to a point where you've gone that walkabout? You've wanted to measure who you are, find out who you are. So, or were you afraid to take a risk after you failed something for the first time? Where are we look at the fifth one. That's a real confidence building. That warrior stage. A lot of us where we, and I think this is the biggest thing. And I was fortunate whereas I got beaten up, towed up a few times. But I was fortunate I had the right men around me. Whereas a lot of the times, if we've got men around us that haven't been validated or initiated, they aren't able to give you the courage and strength to get back up again. Because a big portion of that's what it is. That's how the warrior, in the DNA of every man is a warrior, but there's trained and untrained. We never got that opportunity to get sat on our backside so that we can learn how to get up again. And that's what's letting men down. They fall out of love. The relationship goes wrong. A business goes bad or struggle, and they don't know how to fight back. Their kids maybe go AWOL and they don't know how to fight back. This world is against you. We have an enemy. It is, in a spiritual realm, we have an enemy through technology trying to rob our kids' innocence. We have enemies all around us, gentlemen. So if you don't know how to show your children how to fight back, and we can talk about it in a physical, but I'm talking about in a mental toughness, talking about fight back, not with anger coming out of our lips, with certainty, with courage, with speaking things that are uplifting, that we can speak love no matter what the circumstances look like. So that's what I'm talking about, fighting back. And of course, that initiation, that validation, that how did that happen to you? We talk about this model world where we talk about that acts with those men going up to that mountain, passing that final test, those stripes. What have you experienced anything that represents that? Because, man, if you haven't, you will walk with a limp your entire life, looking for the next thing to make you feel good. That's the bottom line, gentlemen. And I'm not talking about, You know, I'm talking about in a range of different areas, you know, because what I've learned over the years is, man, this plays out in relationships, it plays out in finances, it plays out in men's identity. You know, they end up looking like a poser. They end up, you know, not having something that represents those stripes, they try and buy their way out of it. Whereas men, what I'm saying is, I'm doing something here in Gozo, and like the last one I did, I actually had 60 men do it, you know, and I can't do that this time as much as I'd like to. Max I'm going to be able to have is 20 men, and obviously this is not for everyone, and if you're still listening, you know, maybe the men that aren't listening, it was never for them, not the right time, I'm not the right guy, hey, whatever, I will not, will not change anything, but if this is speaking to you, okay, if this is speaking to you, maybe, and you want to be one of those 20, whereas, man, don't let anything stop you from saying, Gav, pick me, choose me, take me. I need this, you know, because I think, man, you know, when I think of my children, my 7 children, when I think of my 5 daughters, you know, you think about your children, the people, your teams of people that are looking up to you, you know, what do they see? How do you act? You know, that remember we talked about that what was it? You know, the act of affirming, you know, your strength, the strength in your character, your actions, your beliefs, you know. Do you know that you know, you've been qualified, that you've been initiated, you know? Because when this happens to you, when you go through something like what we're going to do here in Gozo, you will talk different, the tone in your voice changes, you walk different, your posture changes, your humility, man, goes to another level. Man, you become a better communicator, a better listener, your whole world changes, you know. So, man, if you're still listening and you want to be a part of this, leave in the comments, choose me, send me an email, do whatever. Find a way to make it happen, to be one of the 20, because it will change your life. It will not just change your life, and this is what I talk about my children, you know, and why I come here, for them to experience this kind of culture, to look at their heritage, where their people have come from, you know, because, men, we're living the best times on planet Earth. We can do things, create things, initiate things that will not just impact your children, it will impact your children's children's children. That's exactly what's on offer here. You can become that man that will impact generations to come. So, hey, I hope you got something out of that. I believe you did. Over and out.